All right, I see that everyone is starting to join us. Good afternoon, everybody. We are very excited to have you back with us. We are going to have a wonderful webinar for you today, and I am so happy that we've got Chip with us. We've got Leigh and Bob, and we are going to be talking about AI. And I absolutely want you to ask your questions. We'll be taking those throughout the webinar at various times, so we will be able to address those for you. And then later on, you're going to meet some of my amazing partners over at HMR, Fox AE, On Point Legal Nurse Consulting, and Strategic Relationships. And then, of course, today you're going to hear also all about what LaFleur does. And this is an amazing company that has worked with us for many years now. So they have put on this great program for you. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun and we're going to learn quite a bit too. So let me go ahead. I want to introduce our speakers and then we're going to jump right into the presentation. But I am very, very pleased that we've got Chip with us today. He is actually an entrepreneur. He's an organizational leader and a marketing expert who combines his experience in web development, marketing tactics, strategy, and team leadership with a strong ability to harness talent, as well as hone in on those complex concepts into concrete deliverables. He has helped many organizations and highly regulated industries unlock growth through intelligent use of AI and analytics. And he also frequently speaks on topics like data literacy, leadership, as well as the future of marketing. And he is also an advocate for ethical AI adoption, as well as community-driven innovation. And he's also, Chip, aren't you the CEO of LaFleur as well?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. So it is an
Thank
honor to have you with us because we know how busy you are. And it's great. We're going to have a lot of good time and we're going to learn a lot again today. And then we also have brought in Miss Leigh with us. She is the Director of Compliance and Contact at LaFleur Marketing, and she leads a lot of their content strategy as well as ensures marketing compliance for clients in law, healthcare, as well as regulated industries. And she specializes in helping teams communicate clearly, accurately, as well as ethically, especially as AI tools reshape how work gets done. A lot of her work focuses on being practical, people-focused, and built for real-world results. And then last but not least, we also have Bob coming in with us, and he's actually the Executive Vice President of LaFleur Marketing, where he leads a lot of the data operations, paid media strategy with a sharp eye for systems, outcomes, as well as business impact. And he's got well over a decade of experience in performance marketing as well as analytics too. And he brings clarity to a lot of these complex challenges. He's helping clients make smarter, faster decisions, hence our webinar today. And then he also plays a key role in shaping LaFleur's AI strategy, as well as ensuring that those tools are implemented with purpose. So we've got three incredibly wonderful people with us today. I want you guys to ask your questions. Now is the perfect time to do it. And at the end of this webinar, you will get a copy of the slides. I'm going to share all of our contact information for our speakers as well as our partners so everybody can stay in the loop. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Leigh, who's going to kick it off. And you guys have a great webinar.
Ginger, thank you. As always, we're really excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to sharing our insight about AI and data-driven decision-making with all of you. So let's kick it off. All right, a little bit of a reality check to start, guys. Most law firms aren't using AI to its fullest potential. Chip, I know I've heard you talk a lot about how law firms often see AI use cases with like the lowest hanging fruit, content development, things like that. How do you think they should be using AI to boost operational efficiency?
Yeah, so I think that what we see is that people look at AI, especially generative AI, as a replacement for something else because that's the way that humans are wired. And so, we got used to, and I didn't come up with this myself. What was at a presentation that talked through this a little while ago at the Econ Club here in Michigan, but we often try to replicate a platform. And so we got accustomed to and started using Google. And so we have that search box. We use the search box to solve a problem. And so I think people tend to use AI in a similar fashion. especially generative AI. And so they go in and they try to solve like the small part of the problem. Whereas, AI and generative AI especially can be used to really start to tackle the bigger picture. So, from a marketing perspective, we see firms that say, well, we have a content strategy, we're generating content, we can generate 10 times as much because we can write and build that out with AI. And it's true, the volume, you can increase the volume, but if everybody's using the same thing for the same result, then you start to lose your advantage. And so, it's not that it can't be used to help with something like that, but I would encourage law firms to start thinking about those bigger problems first. Think about think about the thing that you're trying to solve for, and not the small problem. And so when you frame a question into Chat GPT, frame out the thing that you're trying to solve for, not the small problem, but the big thing. And then you'll find that feedback, I think, will start to feed in. And then also, generative AI is just one form of AI, and that's the one that has kind of the most buzz right now. But AI has been around for a very long time. And when you start to think of, kind of how generative AI was built, it was built with a huge data set. And so it's using all of the internet, basically all of the content that's out there to feed into that model. Well, what it doesn't do is it doesn't use that first party data. It doesn't use your own data, right? So your case management data, your marketing data, it's not taking that sort of information. And so I would love it. I would love to see lawyers kind of start thinking longer term, how do we structure things so that we are able to build models that are using our data and using that to, again, solve those big problems, right? Instead of just kind of the minutia, like how do we generate more content? How do we come up with a script? Things like that.
And I think this idea of AI as infrastructure is really exciting. But Bob, I know you are a huge advocate for data hygiene and data literacy, as well as strong data architecture. What about why is this so essential for law firms as they start on a more robust AI as infrastructure journey?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, most companies, including law firms that we've worked with, when we start looking at how can we use AI to help uncover different trends that we're seeing, a lot of the times the data is a mess. There's not a strong foundation. A lot of that's not anyone's person's fault. It could be, hey, we had this intake software, and now we have this intake software. And how you label things in one may not be how you label in the others. So there's always that give and take. But really, what happens is that creates silos. So this is my intake software, and it can't talk to my case management software, can't talk to marketing. So you just have three desperate sources. So I kind of look at that as like, if I'm building a house, I don't want to use rotted 2x4s to build my house. I want to make sure I have a strong foundation. And when you start looking at, how you structure your data in your warehouse, that everything, dates are all the same. Doesn't matter what system they come from. A date is a date. Phone numbers are all formatted the same. Like, what are these things you can do to grow it? And so, like, some examples could be, in one system, it's called auto accidents, but on your forms online, they're called car crashes. Well, all of a sudden, you have two things that are saying the same thing, but in different words, and your data doesn't reflect that. So you have to do a lot of data cleaning and hygiene. And that's kind of where AI fails. If you add AI to a mess of data, a lot of the times it just fuels, it just accelerates confusion, because you really have to make sure you understand what you're trying to accomplish with that data. And if not, like, if you don't have that strong foundation, nothing else you try is really going to stick.
And I think you all are hitting on a really important concept, which is that AI is powerful, but it really needs that context and purpose. And Chip, you've talked about how, and we've all talked about how AI doesn't think, it identifies patterns, and you need to provide it with that context and that purpose and the direction. Otherwise, you're going to be, the information you won't be getting, that you get, will not be as helpful. Can you give us some insight into how, what a firm or how an individual might drive AI with context and purpose?
Yeah. So, speaking specifically about generative AI, so ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini, things like that. Um, again, to shift our mindset from, this is a search box, or this is somewhere where we solve small problems, to what would I do if I had an assistant, if I had someone who I could ask to do anything, and that assistant, that entity was not going to judge the question, anything like that. And so if we hired someone and we brought them through, kind of brought them up to help us, get our work done, we would start to explain, like, what's your role, and why do we do what we do. And it's kind of funny to think of purpose in terms of an AI, because an AI is just a predictive model. But if we start to think of it that way, then we start to give it the context that it needs to really start to flesh out the thing that we're trying to get for it. And the better we can get, the better we can become at providing that thorough picture of the context of what its job is to do in that instance, the more accurate the results are going to be. And so, giving it that purpose helps us drive it into the right direction. And then context, I started to get ahead of myself, as I do earlier, but giving it context. These AI models, like the way that the generative AI models work, is they are trying to predict the next word that it thinks should come next in the response. So when you give it information, you're saying, feed me back, a response. That response is taking all of the information that it has, which is a huge data set, that it's predicting the next word and predicting the next word and predicting the next word. Well, it's built off of this giant data set, which is the content that's been available to it on the internet. But again, it doesn't have your proprietary information. And so there's a couple of things that I always try to make a point to do. I primarily use ChatGPT. I use the other ones too, but so I'll just reference ChatGPT in this. But building custom GPTs and building projects lets you take your own files, and just for compliance clarity, if you're using a Teams account, if you're using a Pro account, and it's, you've turned off the training modules, make sure it doesn't train. You can start to upload your own files and build those into the GPT. And so within a custom GPT, you can now give it a purpose and tell it what its job is. And you can start taking your own files, and Excel files, Word, PDFs, PowerPoints, even videos, and you could feed that in there. And now we'll start to have context and start to help with problems. So one example there is, we have some clients we've worked with for a long time. We have all of their proposals, all of their invoices in there. I could start to ask it questions like, what's the over or under in terms of hours that we've applied on a project through the course of the period, and it will be able to understand that answer. I can ask, what did you notice in terms of pattern changes, as we built out the structure the way that we built over time, and it will identify those things. Now, it won't be able to give you those answers without that proprietary information. So that's where giving it context helps, and that can be as simple as copy paste, or uploading files and uploading a data set that it's going to learn to work off of.
Let's talk about data for a minute. We've referenced first-party data a lot already, and I know that it is, in our minds, a pretty essential part of building any type of AI operations and infrastructure for a law firm. First of all, Bob, what is first-party data for those who might be unfamiliar with that term?
Yeah, so first party data is in essence data that you own. So it comes from information you've collected via intake forms, via phone conversations. It could be website behavior data, anything that you collect that lives on your own system, that is your own data, is in essence what first party data is.
Why is it so valuable?
Mainly because it's your own data. A lot of these models use different predictive analytics to say, even Google Analytics 4, GA4 right now, uses predictive modeling at a certain point due to privacy. But this data allows you to see exactly the picture that your firm, that your business and how it's performing. And a lot of times the issue is it lives in all these different siloed areas. Is, hey, we have CRM notes in this spot, call logs in this. And so it's really hard to get that together. But really what this does once you have it all is it really allows you to power personalization into messaging. You can understand how people are. If somebody calls you from Google Ads, you can say, okay, here's the things we talked about in the phone conversation. Here's things that are true. And then you can start using that data to go back, really craft your journeys and craft your intake team to say, hey, we're seeing this with a lot of different people who call in for an auto accident case. So let's change our script to do this, and that's going to help us close more leads. So it's once you put all that data in one spot, and it just really builds long-term value for you. It gets smarter over time, and it's less vulnerable to, hey, I'm going to change, Google's going to change how they do their algorithm, and that throws it off. So you can always have that data in there.
I just want to speak to one thing there too. When we talk about that first party data, the value of that can't be understated, and retaining ownership of that, the importance of retaining ownership of that can't be understated as well. And so, working with a lot of law firms through the years, we've seen all different sorts of models around case management platforms. And one caution that I have is, you know, try not to go too far down the road with a case management system that doesn't have an open API, something that you can't replicate your data set from within that. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to change case management systems, but you want to remain as as platform agnostic, not data, as platform agnostic as you can. And so what that means is that means that you should really have a data warehouse where you're capturing your intake data, your case data, things like that, so that should something change, you have the ability to pivot. Different platforms are going to come up with different features. Sometimes they're going to be really cool. Sometimes they're going to sound cool but be meaningless. The sales pitches are what they are. But we're at a time now where the importance of locking in and maintaining your data independent of the platforms that you're working on becomes increasingly important. It's something that the firm owns. It's IP, like it is incredibly valuable. And so the data warehousing, we'll talk through kind of some of the ways we're using that, but it is not just a matter of pulling it for reporting, for learning and things like that. It's a matter of sustainability and increasing the value of the firm even, because it is something that you own that is not replicatable.
And this is not just a potential risk, right? I mean, with the GA4 transition, there were firms who first party data either got disconnected or potentially lost too, right, Bob?
Yeah, that is true. So when Universal Analytics kind of finally sunset, you had to X on a date to get all that information in. If not, anything you had in UA historical data just disappeared into Google's world, and you can no longer access it.
And what kind of, because again, not everybody here might be as literate as us with what UA is versus GA4, what type of data might firms have lost during that sunset?
Yeah, during that sunset, you'd lose any historical data as far as users and sessions on your websites, conversions that have happened on your website, what pages are getting visited over time. Really anything web analytics wise that you would look at in marketing, you lost. And if you didn't have a way to get that into a warehouse, when you made the transition to GA4, GA4 doesn't backdate. So the minute you moved, you had no data there before. So if you weren't actively collecting just baseline data for a year before GA4 changed, once you moved to GA4, you were starting fresh and you wouldn't have that historical look back window.
We have talked a lot about data warehouses, and it's not a term that we've defined for our audience yet. And we're talking to a bunch of lawyers and they love definitions. So folks, Bob, what is a data warehouse?
Yeah, so a data warehouse is a platform like a Google BigQuery, Amazon Web Services, Snowflake, that allow you to take all of your information across all these different sources and plug it into one centralized location. So you can take your marketing data, you can take any call data that you might have, advertising data, intake, billing, anything you can think of that has an open API, you can put it all in one location. And what that allows you to do as you clean the data and make it all standard. So how a phone number shows up, let's say in CallRail, is the same way a phone number shows up in if you're on Neos or Fileline, the numbers show up the same. So when you start comparing, hey, what am I seeing in CallRail versus what am I seeing on my case management system, you can now kind of connect the dots on some of your users. You'll never be able to get 100% attribution again. That's just the data landscape we live in with data privacy. But if you're making decisions off of, a 70% sample size, you're still making better decisions than you were off of just here's what my gut tells me. But it really allows you to unlock insights as you clean stuff, and you'll be able to query data sets together. So you can say, okay, here's all of my data for GA4, and here's my website data. I also know I ran TV spots on these days at this time. Let me overlay that. Now let me overlay my case data to say, okay, now that I have these three things with the same dates at the same times, do we start to see any correlations of, hey, when we did ads at this time, we saw spikes at this time, and later down the road, we saw cases come in within 2 hours or 3 hours, and kind of you can start to see those spikes and really use AI to help identify those trends with everything in one spot. I think the biggest thing too is, having this all in one spot really gives you a way to have, I guess, be easier audit your data and what easy integrations, but also just means it's secure and it's one spot that you have access to that has all of that data in it.
And we're seeing the leaders in AI continually kind of roll out with more and more connectors, right? So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT now allows you to connect straight to your SharePoint if you're on Office 365. Gemini is already integrated with Google, things like that. And so they're allowing you to make those connections, to train those models. Having a data warehouse gives you the ability to do that really at scale, unlike those other things. So even with those integrations at present, but it's interesting, generative AI has not been around for that long. AI has been around long, but generative hasn't. But one of the features that they rolled out as quickly as they could is the ability to tie in your own data. And they did it in a way that was the most user-friendly way, because that's what we have access to now. But they're pushing hard to try to increase the capabilities of those models by using first-party data. And so the firms that have their first-party data in a data warehouse where it's normalized, where a date in one system equals a date in another system, that is the trend, and that's the direction that we're going. The firms that are able to implement that at scale will be leaps and bounds ahead, and we'll talk through some examples in a little bit about that.
So it sounds like we're starting to veer into, you have data and you're probably visualizing this on some sort of dashboard or some sort of interface. Is that fair?
Yes. I mean, I think that, pulling in and pulling in dashboards and, the term that we've heard floating around is more live boards now, because dashboards were a static snapshot in time. And, if you have a good dashboard, it's a pretty current snapshot. But being able to see that and visualize that data is very valuable. But it's also not the end, right? It's not the only thing.
You are teeing me up, my friend. Amazing. But as you were speaking, go ahead.
Oh, so I mean, dashboarding is a really valuable feature. And again, maintaining that platform agnosticism across the board. Data warehouses don't care how you use the data. And so you want to maintain that flexibility. But then what do you do with it, right? The dashboard is the medium, it's the platform that is helping you see and visualize information. And there's a couple things that are valuable in doing that. Humans are visual creatures. And so we see trends, in visualizations that we don't see in a big, huge spreadsheet. Some people do better with that. But it's really an opportunity to have sense making around your data. And so having a really strong platform there, I think really helps. Um, if you have dashboards that you're not using, or as we've seen many times, if you're getting a dashboard, from a vendor, and the dashboard is different every month, then that's a little suspect, because usually that means that they're trying to find something that's working well. You want to have some consistency there. And so I think of it as, you know, um, the dashboard should, more than anything, identify problems. And if the dashboard always looks good and everything is all green all the time, then you're looking at the wrong dashboard. Look at the one that, and I don't care what your relationship is. If you have a great relationship, a great partner, just to talk on the marketing side, you have a great partner, they're very effective. They should still show you the areas that took a dip. And so that dashboard is the starting point to then drill down and start to find the issues. And so you kind of think of it as like, you have your initial view. All right, here's overall health. Well, we see that there's an issue here. Here's a diagnosis, and then there's a deep dive. And each one of those functions is a little bit different, but each one is very important. And the key there is having a dashboard that is interactive, right? So it's not static, that you can do change analysis. You can dive into the data and say, my intakes went down from here to here. Why is that?
And I think one thing I want to note is that, the three of us are acting as if, transparency and consistent reporting are the norm. I know that in the last year or so, the American Bar Association published a study that gobsmacked me, quite frankly, that a large percentage of law firms don't have visibility into consistent reporting from their marketing partners and others. And so if you are relatively new to this space and you're looking at AI and maybe either AI powered dashboards or other AI powered decision making tools, how can somebody differentiate between overblown AI and actionable AI? Bob, if you want to walk through this slide a little bit, I know Chip's hit on some of this at a high level already, but I think it because of the fact that, again, in the marketing world, we take it for granted that everybody has access to reporting, and there's data that suggests that people don't. So not everyone here might. What should people look for?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools out there that will, going back to the data warehouse part too, there's a lot of tools that will say, oh, connect your data here and we'll give you all these insights, which is great until it's not giving you the insights you're looking for. And then the minute you leave them, and if you connect their data right to your system, you don't have that data connected anywhere. So now you're starting back at ground zero, which is why that data warehouse is so important when looking at this. But if you're looking at something via AI that it seems, too good to be true, or hey, this thing looks awesome, but if you really look at it, does it do anything to help affect your business decisions or process? If it doesn't, then it's kind of overblown. You're looking for something that's simple and practical that you can click on two spots and ask, why did this change? It's going to give you the answers. It doesn't need to be, the world's greatest looking charts that you've ever seen. What you're looking for is, how do I use this to help affect my business and grow my firm? And you see this, you get a lot of hype right away of, hey, this is a great new tool. Let's everyone jump in and use it. And then everyone jumps in and uses it, and you quickly find that, oh, this doesn't actually provide value. And all of a sudden I paid for a really expensive tool that looked really cool and promised us the world, but now that people are getting into it, they're not getting the information they want. What you're looking for is really something that's so simple to use that your team is going in and looking at it on a daily basis and drawing conclusions of, hey, we might have an issue with intake. Well, why is that? And you can really dive into that. And we kind of have some examples we can talk through too of things we've seen in the past of like how it was before AI and how it is post AI. And also, if it promises you like, hey, this is going to make your ROI unbelievable, I'm always skeptical of that. No one thing is going to change that, because really, it's not. AI isn't like to me, AI isn't just a tech change. It's a complete like change management on how you run a firm, how you run your operations. And, you know, if you have the right setup, it has measurable outcomes linked to firm goals. So if you're looking to say, I want to increase or decrease the amount of days that my auto accidents cases take by a month, because that means I'm getting paid a month sooner and that does my revenue flow. Well, how do we set up AI to track those things and understand where is it falling apart versus, oh, we just want to do this, but we don't actually have any hard data to prove it. And this will help you see what's changing and quickly, and one of those driving factors.
I think just to quickly touch on the other thing that, you know, one of the other overblown pieces is the, you know, the point in time that we're at with AI. We've experienced this before, right? We experienced this with dot-coms, and then, you know, one person sold a dot-com for $5 million, and then everybody bought them all up, and they're still sitting on them for $12 a month, and they haven't sold them because, you know, it was the gold rush. And then after that, it was SEO, right? Let's just sprinkle some mystery SEO on it. Well, what are you actually doing? What is the SEO that you're doing? Like, you know, are you writing content? Are you building links? You know, are you, oh, we're doing SEO. And so, you know, we've seen countless like relatively low cost contracts out there, you know, a couple grand a month. We're doing all your SEO, but it's this pixie dust, right? And so we're experiencing that same thing with the current rollout of AI, and it's, you know, hey, AI powered. Well, how exactly? You know, and if it's just click a button and you're going to come up with 27 different iterations of the same article written a little bit differently, like that there is a word for that that is kind of making its rounds around the internet. It's the enshittification of the internet, right? I think Lee was trying to make me not say that,
No,
but
I was saying just
oh,
say it because it's
okay, good. Ooh, I got a
and
green light. I
yeah,
got
no,
the green
no,
light.
no.
But you know, and so what's happening is, yeah, you can click a button and you can generate 57,000 iterations of a thing. Um, so can everybody else. Like that is not serving the business goals. And you know, explore those things and look into them, but just don't think of it as a magic bullet. You know, it needs to be, it's a tool and it needs to be applied in the correct way.
And it is not in the scope of this webinar, but y'all invited a content nerd. So I would also note that AI is deeply affecting SEO and
Mhm.
how individuals are going to be searching moving forward is changing dramatically. And look at the big picture anytime you see a tool that is suggesting that it can magically give you the SEOs. But again, I am not supposed to be talking about that here. Maybe that's another webinar that we schedule later with Ginger. But let's talk about those business use cases. Again, AI as infrastructure, which I think is really, to me, such an important change of perspective for a lot of not just law firms, but just business owners in general. Um, we had a use case here about personal injury intake. And this is based on a pre-AI situation that we had with a client and some discoveries that we made. So Chip, why don't you kind of walk through how AI might speed up the identification of a problem and drive real insight rather than just deliver beautiful visualizations.
Yep. So we were working on a project with a client, and you know, we got the call, hey, our intakes are down. You know, what did you do? Because usually it's marketing's fault somehow. And so their intakes were down, and we peeled everything back and we took a look at all the data that we could see, and traffic was good, and traffic was up, lead volume was up. We can't control lead quality, but the feedback was, you know, lead quality has taken a dive. And I mean, there are some things that we could do to make it better, right? Um, but you know, we were panicked, right? And we're okay, let's take a look. And so after looking through and kind of exhausting the data sources that we had, you know, Google Analytics, chat, phone calls, all that thing, everything looked like it was on track and where it should be. And so then we asked for the firm's case management data, anonymized, of course. And so we got a bunch of case data back, intake data. And at the time we used Power BI because that was the tool most equipped to do that. And we loaded up at Power BI and started looking at the intake team and kind of how they were performing. And what we saw was, we saw great numbers, great numbers, great numbers, and then all of a sudden a big drop that coincided with the time that we were reached out to. So we dug in deeper and we found that there was one intake person in particular who was a rock star performer. And this was a tricky area because a lot of firms are using that wanted close rate. So they, if they want the case, what's the close rate of wanted cases? And everybody at the firm had the same close rate of wanted cases, 96% or so. But one intake person had a total close rate that was disproportionately higher than everybody else. And so not just wanted cases, but all leads that came in, she closed more. And then she went from rock star performer to kind of half to kind of a quarter, and then she disappeared. And I said, well, here's the problem. Like your highest performer stopped performing. And so went back to the firm, talked to them, and it turns out they had asked her to do some other tasks, within the firm that she didn't care for, medical records retrieval, which I don't think is anybody's favorite thing. Um, and she didn't like doing it. And so she stuck around for a little while and then she got another job. Well, we went through this and kind of showed what was going on and, talked with the owner of the firm and he said, well, I'll see what we can do. And so he reached out, he was able to hire her back. And he said, what would it take to get you back? And she said, well, you got to pay me a little bit more. And I don't ever want to do medical records retrieval. She came back, and within about a month of her being back, after that first month, their intakes were right back up where they were. Now, the challenge with that is we had to manually go and find that pattern, and that took about a month. So it took probably 30 days to realize, hey, intakes are down because you don't know that the first day that they go down, it takes a month or two. And then it took about a month to get all the data normalized, put it in a way that we could visualize it, and get some insights out. And then we had to have an idea at least where to look. And that was one use case, and Bob can talk through the one on here on the screen in a minute. But you think about the financial impact of that one person. And so let's just say, there were 10 cases that the firm otherwise would have signed. What's the minimums on those? Maybe you had a great case in there, but just taking minimums and starting to do the math, if you missed 30 cases that you otherwise would have signed, man, that's a big change. Now, to go through and do that analysis would be unsustainable, right? But to have an AI where you can instruct it and say, take these data sets, visualize them, let me see trends and do that. But also understand that the goal is to sign more cases. And I want you as an AI to show me graphs and show me visualizations of the things that we could modify, or the things that could potentially be changed in order to achieve that goal. And that speaks back to the purpose in the context of the AI. So the purpose of that AI is to identify what optimizations the firm could make to increase their sign up rate. And the context is the data sources, right? So the intake team, your web traffic, your chat scripts, your call rail recordings, right? All of those things can inform the AI to say, we see a pattern here. And there is just no way to replicate that with human oversight. To imagine somebody listens to all of these chat, all of these recorded phone calls, or somebody reads the transcripts, somebody has to read all the chats and say, hey, you know what, this operator is not as good as this other operator. But AI can identify that to get to that kind of, dashboard, that ongoing health check, and then do the diagnosis, right? To say, hey, here's where there's an area that we can improve. And then to go in and do that deeper dive and say, all right, now we're looking at the individual indicators here. And so AI can take that process that probably took us a couple months, and it can do it every day, right? And so to come in every Monday and to say, all right, here's 3 optimizations for the firm that we can make to increase, our intakes, or looking even bigger picture, especially over the long term, AI can identify patterns like, hey, this attorney, when paired with this paralegal, gets a better outcome. AI would catch that, where a person, no matter what the visualizations are, a person is not going to. So that combination there, I think, can be really powerful. And just that example is a really clear cut. This was the cost of it taking that amount of time to find the answer.
And Bob, again, like Chip is talking about immense insight, but that all has to be predicated on strong data architecture, good data hygiene, all of those things again. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the more you can have your data normalized and clean. When I mean normalized and clean, I mean, a date is a date across no matter what set you go into. An hour is an hour. There's when you want to get nerdy into data, there's a lot of different data types in there. And dates can show up as timestamps, they can show up as integer, like they can show up as any different type. So like understanding and going through that process when you start to do this to understand, okay, having that idea of what do I want to get out of this that's going to help me perform better really kind of helps put a lens on the data. So when you go in to start putting this into a warehouse and cleaning it to be able to use it, you fully understand I'm doing this because I want to be able to get X, Y, and Z out of it.
Yeah, just one quick thing to touch on here too. All this talk about data warehouse, normalizing data, things like that, that can sound intimidating. For a place to start, just talk to your IT team. These platforms, Snowflake, Amazon, BigQuery, these are readily accessible platforms. These are not crazy expensive things. Talk to your vendors who provide your case management, your marketing team, and just your IT team, right? If you have good IT support, they should be able to point you in a direction to help you look into some of these data warehouses. And these data warehouses are surprisingly accessible. You have to be a little bit of a technical person, but you don't have to be like a tech genius, like a data scientist to start to build this. Certainly that doesn't hurt, but it is more accessible than it probably sounds like, at a glance.
Right. Perfect timing, Ginger. I
It
was gonna say
sure
we are at
is.
a good tipping point to have you step in.
Absolutely. We're going to take just a quick break because I wanted to bring in two of our partners. You guys might know Taylor from HMR. He's actually just had his baby girl. She is, I think just a couple weeks or a couple months. Is that right, Taylor? Um, but we're very excited to have him with us today because we know he's had his hands full, also with two small boys. But Taylor has been with us for a while now, as well as HMR. And it's just incredible working with this company. You guys have heard me talk about them, rave about all the different people that work there as well. But Taylor, we're excited to have you and to share some of the things that you guys do. Leigh, is it okay if I close the um,
Yes.
just for a few minutes?
Go ahead.
And then also I wanted to let everybody know that if you have any questions, now's the time you can start thinking about those so we can ask Leigh, Bob, and Chip. But Taylor, thanks for joining us today. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Ginger. As always, it's great to see everyone. In the world of AI these days that doesn't sleep, I too have been struggling to find some sleep the last few weeks. But we're a full house now, and I'm happy to be back in the mix with everybody. So again, my name is Taylor Luce. I'm the Southeastern Regional Manager for HMR. Been in the medical funding space for about 11 years, and HMR has been doing it for about 15. And where we differentiate ourselves from a lot of our competition out there is that, we can fund everything from your most basic, single study MRI to a catastrophic TBI, a traumatic brain injury. With the networks of providers we have around the country, we're funding catastrophic spinal cord injury cases, brain injury, all the way down to soft tissue. But, these folks have, lost the capacity, once they're in these debilitating, car wrecks or 18-wheeler crashes, they have lost the capacity to provide for their families, while they undergo these, treatments that may last, several years. And, whether they can't pay for routine groceries, car payments, mortgage payments, you name it, those are things we can do and take off your law firm's plate. The old adage is, why use your own line of credit or use your own money if you can use ours? So, and then to tidy everything up, to bundle everything at the end of the case for you guys as well, what we're offering now too is case cost and litigation funding to help, prove your case, with an accident reconstructionist, a, demonstrative aid, to pay for some of these experts to come testify, live at trial. It's not cheap. And, that's what we're here for. We have the financial firepower for you guys to put on your best case. And we don't want, you guys to be scared away by the deep pockets of the insurance companies. Because we've been doing this 15 years. Like I said, we want to be able to help you guys from intake all the way to, your client walking out the door with the biggest check of their life. So we hope, on your next case, if you could give us an opportunity to work with you, we would love that. And we do believe if you give us a chance, we can help prove your damage model. And as always, help change the trajectory of your case.
Perfectly said. Thank you so much, Taylor. And please don't forget to put your information in the chat box. So if anybody watching, they can call you, ask questions. And what I love is you're kind of like a super connector. People like all around the country. So if there's any attorneys out there working on special cases and they've got questions, or if there's certain people they need to get in touch with, you are such a great resource for that as well. But I'm always hearing great things from everybody that we work with, and I can't thank you enough for everything that you do. So keep up the great work.
Thank you,
And
Ginger. And a lot can be said about connectionology as well. You guys have literally connected us with folks, all around the country. And I've been a great partner to us for my 5 years, 6 years running. So I'll keep coming back.
hey, that means a lot. And I'm always hearing John Romano, and I know their firm who works with you as well, talking about the good work that they do, and they're working with you in certain cases. So I love hearing those stories, and thank you again so much for everything.
You bet. Thank you, guys. I'll see you again soon.
We'll see you soon. Thanks, Taylor. And now I've got Mark coming in. Looks like Cody is probably out there traveling today or getting ready for a conference, or he's probably working on somebody's animations or their graphics or demonstratives. But we're excited because we have Mark joining us, who is going to share with you guys what Fox AE does. And again, we're so blessed to work with another amazing company. We're bringing you guys only the best of the best. So, Mark, thank you for being here with us. We're excited to see what you're going to share with us today.
Thanks, Ginger, for the introduction. Yeah, Cody's not here. Cody's unavailable the whole week. I don't know exactly what he does, but I'm guessing it's something really important. So
Something
I'm here
top
to step
secret.
in. Yeah. So my name is Mark. I'm from Fox AE. We're a team that creates graphics and illustrations for all stages of litigation. We work with attorneys across the country like John Romano, Doug Bean, Mark Lanier, and we absolutely love them. They're always so kind. They're a massive help in growing our company. We do all kinds of animations and graphics for litigation, car crashes, mechanism of injuries, surgeries, colorized medical scans, brain illustrations, 3D injuries, you name it. If I didn't mention anything, that doesn't mean we don't do it. It's because we have done it all. Our unofficial slogan is, we are not an animation company, we are a communications company. We pride ourselves in storytelling and illustrative ability to meet our objectives. We maintain open communication, and we are always available for consultations to determine whenever your case will benefit from our graphics and how best we can assist you. As some of you already know, we also have a stock website, which we call Fox Prime. The site offers many different animations and image illustrations of various surgeries, injuries, anatomy, and more. If you don't find what you're looking for on it, or we're close, but you just want to tweak it a little bit, you can always send us a request for custom graphics or check back later. We're always creating new content, and the site is updated regularly.
Yeah.
That's
I was
pretty
going to
much
say,
it.
what I love about that Fox Prime website that you guys have is you've got images on there for like as low as like $200 or $250. You can get it instantly and use them for cases. So it's pretty incredible. I love that it's right there at your fingertips. Be sure to put that website in the chat box so everybody can check it out. Okay, Mark?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Here's my information. I'm also going to add that in the chat box. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And I know this is a lot to say because John Romano has been in this industry well over 50 years now. but he's working with you guys almost exclusively now. So that says a lot of the work that you do. And we are just so proud of you guys and what you've accomplished and what you're doing for all of our attorneys. So thank you so much, Mark. And I'll let you get back to work, but please come back anytime, okay?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Leigh, we can go ahead and open up your slides again. We'll take another break in just a little bit. But we've got a great question that just came in from
Yeah.
Angela. Is it okay that I ask you guys real quick? Because, and by the way, Angela, we're so happy you're watching today. Great attorney out of Pensacola, Florida. This is such a good question. She says, how do people respond to having so many aspects of their daily work activities monitored by AI and analyzed? And what type of disclosures are required and are given to employees who are being monitored? It's a great one.
I think first of all, we're not talking about monitoring email and other kind of communications that might be deemed personal, just because I know there are some potential laws and in certain states about that. But Bob and Chip, why don't you talk about sort of how one might disclose this to employees and frame it in a way that does not feel punitive?
I mean, I've got lots of thoughts on that personally. So I'm a big believer in kind of the advocating for the human experience, right? So that's a lot of how we've structured our organization. You know, we're in the process of trying to do a push to a 4-day work week right now. We're doing summer hours, so we do Friday afternoons off. You know, because I think people push harder and they work harder when they have full lives. And so I think we need to treat people like people all throughout, right? And so when we look at how we're building out AI to better understand how an operation works, to me, I lean on the more um, I lean on the more conservative side of rolling out initiatives that are going to be like kind of an overwatch, right? And so, um, for example, you know, there are software platforms out there that will do a screen grab every 15 minutes. And that just seems invasive to me, right? I mean, how can you go about focusing on your work when in the back of your mind, you know, somebody might be looking at what was on your screen at any given time in a given day? And so, um, you know, I think these AI initiatives need to be rolled out conservatively, and not just pushed out to say, hey, we want to understand what people are doing. You know, the examples that we're talking about here, these are ways to dive into the data that's already being collected. And I would think that, you know, anyone who's working within a firm would have an expectation that the firm is going to use their case data to help the firm operate better. And so looking for opportunities for training and for improving performance, I think is a big one. Identifying underperformance is there though too, right? And so how do we go about doing that with AI? I hope we find those things sooner, and it gives us the ability to weigh in and try to coach and guide people. But you know, if anything, I think it's a training opportunity, right? So in the example I gave before, we identified a rock star performer. How do we replicate that rock star performer across the rest of the intake team? And to me, that starts out with having a conversation with them. What are you doing? What are you doing differently? If you can, record that conversation, put it in Chat GPT, you know, have it come up with, hey, what were the takeaways here? And then have Chat GPT help us create a coaching process that we can talk through and train the rest of the intake team. And that should result in some changes to your SOPs, so that all your intake team then is kind of following a structure. So what I do advocate for is, you know, using AI with existing data sets to improve performance. What I am not personally a fan of is using AI to be on Overwatch and overly monitor the team. I don't like the screenshot idea, right? I don't like things that are invasive like that personally. And I don't think that that's how you get high performance out of your team. Um, so I guess that's my take there. As long as the AI is using, you know, the business's data that is being collected, you know, and not put into a way that is really going to be invasive to your employees.
Absolutely.
And I think that if you are going to be using any AI tools in your operations, having a clear policy that outlines rights and responsibilities is really essential. I'm happy to share ours with anyone who would like to see that. You've got my email, shoot me an email and I'll send you our AI policies and I can kind of walk you through why we did or did not do things. But making sure that people understand that data is going to be used, but also not making data use feel punitive. And we're going to get into that a little bit in a minute, that change management is, we've talked a lot about data architecture and the technology, but the other half of any successful AI implementation is change management, and that is a human factor. And we're literally about to jump into that in a little bit more detail, but that implementation has to involve humans and buy-in, and there's ways you need to do that. We believe there's more effective ways to do that than others. Bob, anything you want to add to that conversation?
No, I mean, I think you guys all talked exactly what I was gonna talk through too. Is the AI we're doing right now isn't monitoring what people are doing on the computer. It's how do we use the data we've collected from all these different sources to help your firm run better and be able to grow with the information you have.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And please keep the questions coming, you guys. These are good. Thank you.
All right. Chip, this slide kind of digs into some of those human-centered mistakes that folks make when implementing AI. And you've already talked pretty eloquently about these, but can you hit on some of the leadership's role in AI implementation?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that one, AI is not a magic bullet, right? It requires a strategy, it requires leadership. And I think that, one of the best things that organizational leaders can do is show the ways that they're using it and share the mistakes that they made, share what they tried to use it for that didn't work, share some of the ways that they have used it that it is working. We recently as a team have started, on a weekly basis going through and talking about what were some things that we tried using it. Let's learn from each other. But I think leaders need to start using it, start using generative AI and start learning how those systems work. And explore them and share that exploration. The other thing that we see very commonly is this AI guilt. And it is really easy for AI guilt to take hold. And then is when, someone feels a little guilty because something that it was harder for them to do was so easy because they used AI and they checked it and they finalized the product, and the product, the work product came out good or great. They feel guilty because they feel like it should have been harder, or that they shouldn't admit that AI helped them get there. And in our business, if I find out that someone did something 10 times more efficiently, I am overjoyed. It's great. And the path to get there, as long as it's an ethical one, I want the outcome, and I want to make sure that it was done within our values. And so leadership has to make it clear that, this is something that we're happy with. This is something that we want to see. We want to see your experimentation. But it's got to meet the standard. It's got to meet the values of the organization. On the dashboarding, on the data side, mixing up reporting and strategy. And so, a strategy should be that overarching, where are we going and how do we get there? Not, hey, we're looking at these numbers, let's get upset because these numbers aren't where we want them to be. Let's take those insights and make a plan, and then roll it out. And AI can help us roll that out too, right? So we can get insights from our dashboard and say, hey, how do I move this? How do I move this variable? Because our dashboard told us that this was going to help us bring in more cases or get better results for our clients. Also, we can't make edicts, right? We can't just make an edict and say, start using it. That's going to be a really confusing process, for our team, because they're not going to understand what the guide rails are, platforms, things like that. Have the team be involved kind of in the thought process, the decision making of how you're going to use it. And then training is huge, right? So making sure that send key people on your team to some conferences, to Oftentimes at a local level, you'll find in the tech communities, you'll find some great speakers that will come into town. Um, and one thing I've noticed going to a lot of legal conferences, you have, there are some snake oil salesmen out there who are promising everything, and you use our AI solution. And there's a lot of great insights too. And sometimes navigating that can be challenging, but I would encourage you to send some of your staff to non-legal venues. You know, if you have like technology groups, um, Econ Club is one that we have. Chamber of Commerce's often put on programs that are really good. Send some of the folks on your team to those events that are focused on AI. Um, you'll get a lot more nuts and bolts of, here's how the system works, and then you can build off of that. I think that that's a good opportunity. And then just on the compliance side, just make sure that you're using a platform that is not utilizing your inputs or your data for training the model. That's where you can get in some trouble. If you use the free version of ChatGPT, or if you use the $20 a month version of ChatGPT, oftentimes those accounts are not by default not training the model on your input. If you use the $20 individual version, you have to go in and turn that off. If you use the ChatGPT Teams, then that should be off by default. But make sure that you check the platform you're using, the terms. You can use AI to parse the terms for you. But look for whether or not they're using your data to train the model. And if they are, you need to turn that off, or pick a different model. And then train your team. That's another area of training. Train your team that they can only use the GPT or the platform that the company has paid for. What you don't want is, you don't want a bunch of people on the team using Gemini when they have a paid ChatGPT account, or vice versa. Same with Microsoft Copilot, right? It comes in Office 365. You have to pay for that seat. Use it. It's a great platform, but just make sure that they're using the company-owned version, and not something that, even if it makes them more efficient, that they're just doing on their own.
Well, I think that leans back into what you said earlier, Chip, about celebrating those efficiencies that are AI based, because individuals who are, working within kind of the, working with AI transparently are less likely to use those sort of personal tools, because it's not as if they're trying to hide it, or they think they're doing something quote unquote wrong, by creating efficiency.
And to jump in here real quick, Chip, I know, like, I saw this in the questions from someone that, like, not everyone here is a computer technician and understands all these deep things. So when, like, you say, like, train a model, what do you mean by, if you put your data in there and it uses it to train the model, like, what is it using, and what do you mean by that?
Yeah, no, thank you, Bob. That's a great point. So even as simple as using just a conversation with ChatGPT, if you start a new chat and you upload a PDF, and that PDF you know, has a contract in it, the contract has a person's name in it. Just that is is a very simple version of training the model, right? So in ChatGPT, you can drag a file in and say, here you go. And then it will parse that file, and you can start asking questions and having a conversation with that. So even something as simple as that, the next kind of step up would be to create a custom GPT or a project. And those you drag your files to the you tell it what to do, and you say, hey, I want a custom GPT to do this. And then you drag your files in there, and then it will reference those files throughout the conversation, or in new conversations, but it stays kind of in that channel. And so there too, if you're uploading proprietary information, and it can even be as simple as a screenshot, that you paste into a chat window. So anything that goes into a chat, with ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever, is used to train that model that you're working with. So just make sure that you're using a paid version, and make sure that that paid version is not using it to train their model, which is the big data set, right? So, and that's happened before. There's a story that an FBI agent was loading some stuff up, and included in that was a confidential informant. someone else asked the question and the guy's name came up, right? So like these things can be very serious. So just make sure that you're using a paid version, and then that they are not using that to train their model, which is kind of the big model, if that makes sense.
So we actually covered this in an earlier Connectionology webinar about a year ago. But if you're using a public free model AI tool, we're using model in all sorts of ways. But if you're using a public AI tool, such as free ChatGPT or free Claude, or AI mode in Google right now, you potentially can be sharing information with that AI tool's training set, and your information hypothetically could appear elsewhere in public searches. That brings up an attorney-client privilege issue, but also if you're inputting, say, information about your return on investment for marketing, you don't necessarily want that, out in the public domain either. So one of the important things you want to do is make sure that you're using confidential personal tools. So the Teams-based ChatGPT innately does not train the overarching ChatGPT model. And we probably talked about this ad nauseum at this point, but I just wanted to clarify, because I know some of this vocabulary is similar and also can be very confusing. And also, if y'all have questions, hit us up by email, and we're happy to explain all of this to you over and over again.
I just want to touch on one other thing too, just on the leadership's role, with AI adaptation. One thing that I would recommend that anyone who's in a leadership role in an organization does kind of is, even if they haven't touched ChatGPT before, but if they get a paid account, make sure that you're in it, and then at least start a conversation or create a custom GPT if you're comfortable with that, and have that GPT's purpose be helping you run the organization. And so the way that I've done that is I have a custom GPT. I've made, our mission, vision, values. I loaded them up in there and I saved that in a Word file and I copied that in. I introduced it to my leadership team and made sure it knew who they were, what their background was. I made sure it understood the roles within the company. And for me, what that did was it gave me this like really easy to access sounding board where I can run ideas past it. I can say, hey, what do you think about this as an offering? And it will tell me if it aligns, it doesn't align. And so, when it comes to leadership's role in being one of the adapters there, getting that set up for yourself is just a great way to kind of learn and understand what like a generative GPT can do for the firm.
And so one of the things that I think Angela might have been hitting on in her comment a little bit is that this often AI can feel like a mysterious black hole to a lot of people who are not early adopters of it. And I promise we're going to talk about the human-centered stuff, and we are right back to the technology and architecture. But I promise this is one of the last times I'm going to be veering down this way. Bob, is there anything that leaders can do when building out sort of AI infrastructure that will help make AI feel less intimidating? As you said, we have on the slide here that AI needs to be boring, repeatable, embedded. Is there anything we can do from an architecture and sort of structure standpoint that will help facilitate that?
Yeah, I think the biggest part there is kind of hitting back to what we talked about earlier, is building that foundation with your data that is clean and scalable, and having that into like a secure warehouse, like a central storage unit. Because once you have that clean, when you start integrating your system, you come up with like, hey, these are the things we want to get out of AI. So here's how we want to structure our warehouse and our data sets. When you start integrating the systems, it's a lot less complex because you're integrating the system and you know what the answers you're looking for are. So it's easier to build though clean that data to those standards than just to go and say, I'm going to do this and now I want to do this. And so it's kind of having that idea. But then, I think it's like this pyramid shows, and on top of it is governance, and just how do we set this up that can easily scale up and down with our team? Who can access what? How is the data protected? What is the process if something breaks? Like having those fleshed out and getting ideas before you roll out a system really helps the team to get buy-in. And I think the biggest thing, especially when you look at data, is there's always that ability for hallucinations. So you can always, I always think of AI as like, yes, they can help me answer these questions, but if I'm just copying and pasting what AI is giving me, I'm losing my ability to critically think and to strategically think. And so you might give AI a question about data and it can give you an answer, but if you don't push back on it and use it as a thought partner and you be the thought leader and training your team to be like, we have this system, and a lot of our systems that we've built have what I call like a trust layer built in. So when I ask the data a question, it shows me exactly the pieces of data that it pulls out to give me the answer, so I know I can trust it. But it's just making sure you're always the thought leader and they're just your thought partner. So it's really making sure you're empowering your team and setting up systems that they can trust and grow with, and kind of having that trust layer built in. But just to know, AI is like anything else. It's not going to be accurate 100% of the time, especially when it comes to numbers. It's gotten a lot better than when it was when, November 20 something, 2022, when it came out, and everyone's like, I'm going to do all these things. And you'd give it, what's 1 + 1? And be like, the answer is 4. You're like, that's not right. So you have to be able to question it and be able to push back on it and use it as that thought partner.
All right. So now we're at this point where leadership is bought in. We've got strong architecture and governance, and you are presenting your brilliant tools and to the team. How do you go about, as leaders of a team that are increasingly using AI infrastructure in boring ways? How do you go about normalizing and encouraging people to engage with this change in a way that doesn't burn them out?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just defining what you want that success to be upfront is huge, because you won't know if AI is helping you or hurting you if you don't understand where you're trying to go with it. You just kind of end up in this forever repeatable circle. So just trying to make sure, hey, when we're creating and setting goals and making a scoreboard to see, hey, is AI implementation working? It could be, hey, we have this new tool, and in that tool, there could be a metric that says active users or monthly active users or weekly active users, and getting in there and saying, okay, we want to see that 80% of our firm is using this tool to make themselves more effective. And so setting those expectations up front, and it goes back to the whole age-old, what gets measured gets managed. So if you just go in and you don't have a clear scope of what you're trying to do, and you're not checking people on it and trying to see if this adoption is working and it's actually fighting this cause, then you're just going to end up in a void where everyone's really excited and then it drops off, and then you're back to solving the same problems again. You never actually really solve the root of the issue, and it's still going. But also just communicating expectations with those clear processes, like I kind of talked just a little bit ago, and then a big thing for us, and Chip alluded to this too, is during like regular check-ins with your team or your managers or whoever you're talking with, make sure you're always refining the process of how you use AI. Review the KPIs that are important to you. And so like we go and I always say, okay, there's 3 questions I want to ask in every one-to-one I have with my team. And it's, how did you successfully use AI this week? How did you fail at using AI this week? And where do you need help with AI this week? And everyone says they could be an expert. It's 2 years old. We're all at the same playing field. I don't have the answer to, here's how I need help sometimes. I don't, but somebody else might have that answer. And so just getting that culture of as Chip said a little bit earlier, like not being worried about using this as a Chip, I'm trying to remember how you phrased it.
I mean, I said it once. I can't say it again.
Can't say it again. Perfect. But not being afraid to use it to say like, hey, oh, I had AI do this. I don't want anyone to know. But like actively in that culture of, hey, failure is okay with this. We're all learning. We're all growing. And being open enough to say, where can you use help in this type of technology? And understanding that, because that, there might be 2 people that have the same, I need help with this, or 3 people. And if no one's asking for help with it, you can't make that change as an organization and roll that out and be successful with how you are adopting AI to help run operations or find operational efficiencies and ultimately grow.
Chip, anything you want to add to that?
I mean, when you look at these things, each of these things sounds like a lot of work. These are great opportunities to use like a generative GPT, right? Use Chat GPT and say, help me set goals and make a scorecard around AI rollout in my law firm. Now, if you've already created that kind of leadership chat, then you're going to be even further ahead because it's going to understand your mission, vision, and values. And so if you have that, then go in there and ask these questions, right? Help me set goals and make a scorecard for AI rollout in my law firm. And it's going to know your mission, vision, and values. So it's going to know what is important, how to frame that. It's going to know what goals feed up. It's going to understand already that you run a firm. Communicate expectations. Help me draw processes based on, if you have SOPs already, bring those SOPs into ChatGPT and say, here's our current SOPs. Help us to create processes and KPIs around the way that we're using ChatGPT and how we're going to measure success. And like all SOPs, right? I mean, if you're going to create some new SOPs, who uses it, when do they use it, how do you prompt it, and how to validate outputs. If you can define those things and build your SOPs around those things, then you should start to see some alignment. You're still going to need to go through some training, but the more you as a leader has rolled in and tried to use it yourself, the easier it's going to be to start to move things through.
Ginger, it is a wonderful time to bring our 2 additional partners in.
Okay, fantastic. And this has been wonderful, you guys. I'm really glad too that you were able to go back and talk about the terms a little bit because we do have some people watching today that this is still, it's almost like overload, and just going back to those basic terms are great. And I love the idea, Leigh, that they can reach out to you and kind of get a list and kind of understand. So highly encourage you guys to reach out after this webinar. And no question, how should I say this, is not a good question. So ask away. I think I had somebody asking me what a dashboard was behind the scenes. And so things like that, I mean, this is why we're here, is to like learn and to help each other. So please.
Yeah. And if someone wants to see a dashboard, we're happy to walk you through a demo of what we do and how we use them. And, it's all about encouraging law firms to embrace the technology so that they can thrive. And we're all here for that same goal. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have questions, you want to see something at work. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. And I can totally understand too that AI can be first of all, there's a lot of great benefits for it, but it's also kind of overwhelming a little bit. And I think about it, even with the work that I do, Leigh, I'm trying to figure out how can I incorporate it to make my job a lot easier so I'm not sitting there doing everything by hand. And ChatGPT just blows my mind.
We're going to create a Ginger bot. I'll send you a custom GPT.
When Chip was talking about how to, look at those high performing employees and how you can replicate them. I wish we could get a couple of me to help me do the same thing. I bet John does too, but it is pretty cool. All right, I went off on a tangent. I'm going to jump right back into it because we've got Patrick coming in from On Point Legal Nurse Consulting and another company that's just I tell you, just amazing to work with. He's been a nurse for well over 20 years now. I think it's like 21 now. And then everybody else in their company, we've got like Ingrid, who's been there for like 40 years. Dawn has been over 30 years. And these are amazing people that can help you in your cases. Not only, I'm gonna let Patrick share in detail what they do, but I know that Patrick has been hired out to go to many different um, places across the country, helping out our attorneys with their cases as an expert. And it's just very cool to hear about all the stories and the things that he does. But Patrick, it's an honor to have you with us. Thanks for joining today.
Of course. Thank you, Ginger. Nice to see you. Nice to see everyone. And yes, my name is Patrick. I've been a nurse 21 years now. My background started at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital in Philadelphia. I was on the cardiac unit and then went out into the wonderful, crazy worlds of community health, home health hospice, and long-term care facilities. So my background, that's my background. So most of the cases that I review for attorneys with Connectionology and around the country happen to be a lot of the horrible nursing home cases that we see, nursing home litigation, home health and hospice, group homes, and assisted living facilities. So we have a wonderful, like Ginger said, I have a wonderful team over here. Ingrid, she's been with us, been a nurse for over 40 years. She's a master's prepared nurse in gerontology. Dawn is our other program director. She's been a nurse for about 30 years. She has a wonderful background. And between the three of us, On Point is run by nurses, which of course is always the best way to go. So we can help you guys with starting in the very beginning with intake, with record retrieval and record organization. Our nurses will bookmark those, get them all organized for you. So the process kind of starts to get streamlined and a little bit faster as it moves, excuse me, through the phase of litigation. We have merit screening process. So if you guys need help with, is this a good case and why? If it's not a good case and why? So we can point out those deviations and standards. And then of course we can place experts for you. We have experts nationwide, medical experts, nursing experts like myself. And then we also do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for medical chronologies, medical summaries, and some specialty reports that we can produce. The world famous pain and suffering report, which John Romano loves and raves about. I actually have a meeting on Thursday for our next pain and suffering report that's coming up. So it's a non-economic damage report. We like to say it provides a different perspective than the attorney legal world. So the nurses will do an interview with the client, the family, whoever's involved. And it just paints a different picture of how these individuals are affected by their injury or whatever happened. We do have 3 licensed life care planners on staff that can put together your life care plans. And then we do more simple, medical cost projection reports. It's a little kind of more of a basic report than the life care plan. So it's Connectionology is wonderful. It's always helped, prepare me to prepare me for trials and for depositions and my reports. I always learn something, and it's, Ginger and John and everyone and Nancy are always fantastic and support us, and all of the other sponsors at Strategic and Foxy HMR. We all work closely with each other. We share information back and forth to help each other out. So everyone's wonderful to work with. So I appreciate it.
Well, we love having you with us, Patrick. And I tell you what, I am getting very excited because we've got our 3rd annual Depositions, our trial seminar coming up in the Fort Worth Stockyards, which is about 30 minutes from Dallas, Texas, a very cool place where we're all getting back together in November. I believe it's the 6th to the 8th. This seminar, it's almost getting close to being selling out because of word of mouth. And it's all because of you guys. And I can definitely tell you that this seminar is so unique. It is so special. We had a blast last year. And if anybody would like to come, now is the time to come and hurry up and book your room, because it also happens to be the same weekend as the Texas Country Music Awards. So you want to get in there quick if you're thinking about coming. And this is a program that has Satch Oliver, Dino Colombo, Joe Freed, John Romano, Philip Miller, Christian Morris. I mean, these are incredible people. We go into small breakout groups. And I can honestly say that if somebody comes to this seminar, and let's just say for some reason you don't like it, I promise you we will make up for it. I'll give you your money back. That is how confident I am that you will leave this seminar feeling so good about practicing law and learning all about depositions. So you guys heard it here first. So hurry up and sign up and come meet us. I know Patrick will be there. Leigh is also coming, I hope, from LaFleur. And you
Talk
guys,
about it real soon.
I tell you what, we are going to have a great time. And then, of course, Sam was strategic, who's coming in right now to speak with you guys. So this is a great opportunity to come and spend time with all of us and learn a lot. So thank you again. And Patrick, please put your information in the chat box so that way everybody can stay in touch with you. Okay.
Will do. Thanks, Ginger. Thanks, everyone.
All right. We'll see you soon. And as I just mentioned, we got Sam coming in with strategic. Again, you guys know how excited I get about this company because they help find these ex-employees from around the country. And these are people that you would not even know existed or that you didn't think could ever be found. And all of a sudden, he delivers this eel report to you that lists out everybody in the most, I don't know, I should say, like, so organized. It's just like the order is incredible. But I don't know, Sam, if you're going to show an ill report today or not. But I tell you what, I'm still blown away by everything that I hear. So thanks for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Sam Littrell. I'm strategic relationships. I've been with the company for a couple of years now. And what we do is we help find former employees of the companies that you're suing. And why we do that is because we think that the power of the former employee, and specifically the disgruntled former employee, can be game changing for your cases. And really, honestly, how we do that from your end is pretty simple. All we do is we have a conversation with you where we collect what's the company you're suing, what types of job titles people would have worked there, and when they would have worked there. And we scrape the internet, we dig and research pretty heavily, and we find these people to help strengthen your case. And so we also do a ton of other stuff. I think, sometimes people get confused with us. They're like, "Are you guys skip tracers?" We can do skip tracing for sure. If you guys need that, we can do that. No problem. However, we're not your typical skip tracers. We are finding the people that you're not going to find in traditional discovery based off of criteria questions and scraping the internet for raw data to find these people that you don't know exist. And so what we do is we like to find you as many folks as we can that could help strengthen your case. We find you their name, their job title, their tenure with the company, and their active confirmed phone number. And so what we do with that data is we send that to you like Ginger said, in a pretty little document, very organized. And then you have two options at that point. You could say, I love the document. I want to kind of get after it myself. Or you can then choose to rehire us to interview those folks and really kind of wean down the list of people to the prime time folks who have the information that could be game changing for you. And so how we do that is we collect some more criteria questions from you, and then we really just send these reports to you and connect you with these people so that it's really on your end very minimal work. All you're giving us is like I said, those three answers to those questions, and then some other criteria questions just for our interviewing calls, and then you get kind of delivered on a silver platter. Here's Joe Smith, who has this to say about the company. Here's whatever, I can't think of any of the names right now for some reason. But here's what they have to say about the company. Sometimes that can be smoke and gun kind of stuff, like, "Hey, we told the organization this was going on. They didn't do anything about it." Other times it could be kind of more policy and procedures type of situations where they're just kind of helping you understand inner workings of the company, maybe kind of terminology the company might use for that could help you in your conversations to have greater understanding. And other times, people even leverage us just for the sheer fear that we have been calling their former employees and they don't know what we know. Some of our clients, even recently, have gotten some pretty large settlements, even pre litigation, just by the sheer fear of them not knowing what we know. So people use us again for all kinds of reasons, but we work with trucking cases, with nursing home cases, premises liability, negligent security, really anything where you think some former employees might bring some knowledge in that you're not going to find in traditional discovery, we can work with. So again, I'll put my stuff in the chat as well. And if you've got any questions, even a smaller case, you can reach out to me and we can see what we could do to even find you a handful of those folks that might have some knowledge that you're not going to find really easily.
Or I was about to say, you probably had requests to find um, family members, or let's say long loves, lost loves, or
Sure.
something. It's probably amazing. I think we should do a story time webinar with you, Sam, because I
Yeah.
would love to hear more about this. I mean, it's
There's all
just
kinds
pretty
of fun
fascinating.
requests that people send us. There's one earlier today where it was like this I won't get into the specifics, but it was this boat marina thing where there's this scam going on, and we're trying to find people who have to do with the scam. So really, honestly, any idea that you have, you can come to me and say, "Can you do this?" And I'll get back with you.
That is very cool. And I know you guys are doing class action cases as well, so that's pretty interesting. Definitely put your information in the chat box. I'm sure everybody will be writing it down, saving your information, but keep up the great work. And thank you so much again for being here with us.
Thanks, Ginger.
Right. And now, Leigh and Bob and Chip, I'm okay with it if you guys got, to finish everything. I think everyone else is still watching right now, so feel free to go over if you need to. Um, just
Are
wanted to let you know.
pretty close to done. The timing was nice, but uh, really at this point, Bob, Chip, do you have any final thoughts or insights or words of encouragement for this audience that maybe feels a little overwhelmed by all the possibilities and power of AI?
I mean, I think that I have so many, but I'm going to try to pare it down so hard. Um, but, keep in mind that, AI means one thing, generative AI is something else. So Chat GPT is generative AI. That's that conversation, those chat bots that you can use. But keep in mind there are layers of AI that have been around for years now, that could do predictive analytics and things like that. And so think of it almost as two buckets. One is that data preparedness for really, I think a more powerful AI than like what you can do with Chat GPT, and talk to your IT provider, talk to your partners, and explore ways that you can use that, because that is emerging and that is coming. That is the next thing that will, it probably won't make as big of a scene in public, but that is going to be a game changer for the firms that do normalize their data, that start building those things out. On the generative AI side, keep in mind that purpose and context, right? Just always think, what am I trying to solve? Can I share the purpose of this conversation, right? And when you treat those conversations like a conversation instead of a Google search box, you'll get much more out of it. And so give it its purpose and explain to it, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's why I want your help. And then give it as much context as you can. And the context can be just what you write, what you talk, what you speak to it. It can be files and things like that. And when you do that, you're going to start seeing some things come out. Um, the other thing I would say is try the voice modes, because sometimes typing up that purpose and the context can be harder than having a conversation. Chat GPT on your phone, hit the little microphone, and it will pop up and start talking to you. And so try giving it the purpose and the context through a conversation and see what the feedback is. I do that when I'm driving all the time. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm doing it legally, hands-free. But as I'm driving, I'll have a conversation, with it in the little saddle there, and I'll talk through the things I'm trying to solve, for the company at work, for clients. And the more that conversation goes on, the more context it has, the more it understands its purpose. And so it's a great way to kind of start to explore what it can do for you.
Chip, that sounds like a great thing to do on a road trip too.
It's
So,
super fun. I do it with my kids all the time. Like, the conversations my kids have had with ChatGPT are ridiculous. So I don't know what ChatGPT thinks I'm into, but it's slightly different than what it is. But you know, play is such a great way to learn about how to use ChatGPT. Do 20 questions with it. Ask it to make up a game and keep score. Like, play is such a great way to learn a new technology, because there's no risk, and you're just
mhm.
screwing around anyways. So, but it does help you see how it works. And so, it would be my like 27th final thought, and I'll stop now.
Oh, that is great. Well, if you guys are okay, I'm not going to end just yet because I've got to bring in Ted, who's going to do the special coffee giveaway, and then I want to see if anyone has any final questions for you guys. But this has been wonderful. I cannot thank you guys enough for being here today. And then while I'm bringing Ted in, can you do me a favor for everybody who's watching who wants to learn more about LaFleur and like what you guys do there? Like, please let us know. And I'd love to hear an example of maybe to make it easy. Like, let's just say you have a client. Tell us how you help that client, like what you can do for them, if you have an example.
I mean, so many things. So we've had clients who have reached out to us to help them get spun up using AI internally. A lot of what we do is, we still build a lot of websites. We create a lot of content, build marketing plans. We've done a lot of strategy workshops. So, all of the things in the marketing side, and then we have a product that we've built with a partner called Clearboard AI, and that is kind of a combination of us building out that data warehouse and then tying it to the data visualization and AI driven software. And what that does is it allows you to converse with your data so you can ask questions in normal language. It writes the code in the background and then delivers it back. Bob talked a little bit about that. So we cover a wide variety of things, but for the purpose of this conversation too, like, if anybody ever wants help just getting a primer on here's how to set up a GPT or here's some ways to use it, or I just want to understand a little better, I'm always happy to take time to do that. We're not a hard pitched sort of organization, and if you end up in our mailing list, you might get some emails. But I am more than happy to just spend some time talking to any attorney who runs a good practice and show them the ropes if they want some one-on-one time too. It's not a sales pitch. We'll go through on Chat GPT and I'll say, well, here's how I'm setting this up. Here's how you can set it up. So I'd say that kind of covers a lot of what we do. I don't know, did I miss anything there, Leigh? I usually do.
No, I mean, we are a full service marketing agency that helps law firms make data-driven decisions about how to grow. And we take our responsibilities really seriously. We value our clients. We have clients that have been with us for almost the 10 years that the agency has been around, which is a blessing. And anytime you have a question or you want to gut check on something, we're happy to talk. We're not, we're not a hard sell agency, and information is power. And we're all about making sure that law firms in this competitive environment thrive and grow.
And I know you guys are working with a lot of my favorite attorneys. One of them is Steve Gerson with the Michigan law firm. Great attorney up there, and he really believes in the work that you guys do. And usually when we have our TVI seminar, for example, it was been in Nashville the last few years. Steve would be speaking, you guys would be there, and it's just wonderful to get everyone back together again. But I mean, you guys are working with really great people. So I hope anyone watching will definitely call you and take you up on that offer, Chip, just to have a conversation, because that's what it's all about. You never know when you're going to be able to help somebody or what it's going to be about, kind of like these webinars. We enjoy doing this for you guys, and what an honor it has been to have you here with us, Chip, Bob, and Leigh. I'm looking forward to doing many more different webinars with you. So thank you for taking the time to be with us. I will be emailing everybody after this webinar, the contact information so you can stay in touch with everyone that you've met today, as well as you'll be able to email Leigh if you would like a copy of the slides, and which I highly encourage you guys to do that as well. But before we jump off, we have a very important guest that just popped in, and this is Ted Mullis, HMR coffee guru. Ted, I think you are more knowledgeable about coffee than anybody I've ever met, because we have given away lots of different coffee flavors. And I mean, I know we did Ethiopian, now we're doing Costa Rican, but you've given away thousands of bags of coffee. We can't thank you enough, because this is always a special treat at the end of our webinars. But thanks for being here. I want you to definitely share who the winner is, but also talk about your special event that's coming up at Mark Lanier's program on the 17th.
Yeah, so first off, I'm excited to announce it's John Baker out of Arlington, Texas is our winner of some great coffee today. So congratulations.
Hey, congratulations.
And yeah, I love keeping people, including myself, very caffeinated. Makes everything better.
I bet John is sitting at his desk right now thinking, oh my gosh, they just announced my name. I am the winner. So
Yeah,
congratulations, John. Hopefully you like coffee. If not, hopefully everyone you know will like coffee and you'll be able to enjoy this.
you'll
But
be
thank
able
you so
to
much, Ted.
be the most popular person in the office and hand
That's
it out.
true.
And then, yeah, we're excited. Our annual HMR After Dark party at Lanier is coming up, and it's on the 17th. So what is that, like a little over 2 weeks, or right at 2 weeks? We're the 3rd. So, and it'll be at the Grotto, which is right across the street from the hotel. I mean, you can't get any closer. We've been same place 4 or 5 years. Can't remember. I have a bunch of friends joining us, so you know, we would love to see you if you're going to be in Houston. And I think our favorite part, last couple of years, we've had a cigar roller, and just it's a blast to watch them roll these cigars. And then whether you want to smoke a fresh one or one that's been pre-prepared, we've got both there for you. So it'll be lots of fun. So
Or
hope
you
to see
could
y'all
get
there.
one and then give it away as a gift, right, Ted?
What's that?
Or you could get one made if you don't smoke and give one away as a gift.
And give it to somebody else, because I mean, it's yeah, it's you know, great custom rolled. You know, you get to watch it done. So I mean, it's just so
Dad
neat
or
to
grandpa.
watch that process.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us. You
Yeah.
guys heard it here. If you happen to be in Texas, be sure to go stop by their special party on June 17th. I love going to these seminars across the country, Ted, and
Yeah.
they run into you guys and they're like, oh my gosh, we saw you in the webinar. And it's just, it's wonderful to hear such great positive feedback from everybody. And I also wanted to mention also, there's another event. I forgot to have Patrick mention it, but you guys just met him with On Point Legal Nurse Consulting, but they are doing their special medical and legal seminar, which is going to be on June 17th. If you happen to be in Pennsylvania, I'm going to email you the details after this webinar. It'll be in the body of the email, but they're giving away 50% off for all of our Connectionology viewers. And I believe is that if you use my name, Ginger, it's going to give you some credit. So 50% off. And it's only $150 if you happen to be in Pennsylvania and you want to go to this. They have some really great speakers. This is our second annual symposium happening at a beautiful museum, by the way. So I will send you those details. But thanks again so much for watching today. Thank you, Ted, for all that you do, all of our amazing partners. And Leigh, Chip, and Bob, you guys are incredible. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we head out today?
Thank you. Thank you all for attending, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate it. This is great. This is super fun.
Absolutely. We learned a lot, and there's even more to learn. So stay tuned because there will be more AI webinars coming up in the future. And then Chip even said we got some more topics we're going to cover as well, because especially when it comes to marketing, I think we need to get back to some of the basics too and let everybody know a lot of things that are happening these days that can help them in their law firm. And so I'd like to do another kind of like marketing sort of basic email for everybody as
Great.
well.
That'd be awesome.
To help.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here. We'll see you
Thanks so much.
soon.
Hey,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.